Leadership is something totally different than being an innovator or being a great salesperson. It's somebody said it very nicely that it's not about being the smartest person in a room, but it's about making the room smarter. When you are the leader and you move from this sort of phase where it was sort of a one-man show, where you had to raise money, you had to innovate, you had to make all the most important decisions. Now it's the time to surround yourself with the people that most likely know more than you and they are better than you in their particular sort of areas of expertise. And your job is to make sure that they are reaching their maximum potential, that they are the best versions of themselves under your leadership.
Hi, Piotr. Good morning.
Good morning, Akash. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Welcome to the Scale It Agro podcast. I'm really excited for this conversation today. And Piotr, somebody has just clicked to listen to this podcast. Why should they listen to this conversation? What should they know about you, who you are, and what we're going to talk about today?
No, I don't think they should listen it because of me. They should listen it because of the subjects that we will cover here today, which I think they are pretty relevant for the sort of young CEOs or the CEOs of young businesses, the businesses that want to grow fast, scale up fast, and they are going through a typical sort of issues of moving from being an innovator to being a CEO, moving from the phase of generating ideas and making the business work operationally slash fundraising to making money and becoming profitable. So all of these things that we will try to cover here today, this is basically the feedback we were receiving regularly from the CEOs of the companies that we support for the Scale It Agro.
Okay, amazing. Really excited to get into all of those topics, especially going from innovation to leadership. But first of all, how did you get into commercialization in this industry?
Yeah, so I'm working for I think like 23, 4, 5 years already in various businesses, mainly pharmaceutical business, mainly animal health. This is the business that resonates with me the most. Great business to be in, very, very innovative, very dynamic, and constantly growing and very rewarding personally because you're just doing a good things for the animals and for the people. And then I also worked for one of the largest food producers in the world, Tyson Foods, and Protix, which is the absolute number one in the world in terms of the insect production. So that was an absolutely great experience after my journey with, large pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, Novartis, Eco Animal Health. It was really exciting.
Okay, amazing. That's really great to hear. I think we should get into it. I think we need to address the elephant in the room for the ag food tech and this industry, which is going from innovation to commercialization. So, first of all, let's describe the problem. Why does this gap exist in this industry?
That's a very, very relevant point and a very good question. Look, I think it's about the skills. You need a different set of skills and sort of a different mindset when you are creating something. So you have a brilliant idea, you know how to make it work. Then you are focusing on raising funds for your project. You are focusing on surrounding yourself with the right people, with the right sort of equipment to make it work. But then the tough moment comes where you need to commercialize it. You need to basically start making money and show the returns. And you know the statistics. it can be pretty challenging. It usually is.
Okay. And how should the founders know when it's the correct moment to make this transition from, perfecting the product, making the product great and amazing? And how do you go from that to selling? And how do you know when it's the right moment to do that?
Look, my philosophy is that whenever you create something, you should have the commercialization in mind. I don't like these things to be disconnected. I
Hmm.
think that as soon as you have an idea and an innovation, like, oh, let's try and do that, fantastic. But then immediately you should ask yourself a question: how to commercialize it, and ultimately, what kind of value am I going to deliver to the customers, and how much this value is worth? And in my opinion, if you start from this sort of approach from the very beginning, it will help you to reduce the sort of the risk of failure, or the risk of challenge, or the risk of a significant delay, because you will have to modify your product, your process, I don't know, move production from one country to another country because it's just too expensive, and your product is really great, but nobody wants to pay the price you want for it.
Hmm.
So that's, I think, that's one of the most important points. And then it's, about surrounding yourself with the right people, listening to them, really being open for criticism
Hmm.
sometimes. Try to involve your potential customers at the relatively early stage. Try to use them to help you to shape the final product in a way that it's going to address their needs in the best possible way. And I think it's also a very good moment to make a potential strategic alliances, sign some offtake agreements, make a very good connections that, later when you have a product ready, you can just call to people that you already know, people that know about your product, they know about the company, and they were engaged in the process of creating. And I think that's very important. I like simple solutions and practical solutions. And one of these things of sort of engaging your future customers can be like creating an advisory board where you
Hmm.
invite a key opinion leader, invite somebody from the side of your potential customer, maybe from the R&D. It depends from the industry. And of course you take care of the NDAs and really the intellectual property that you want to share with them. But that's the great moment to have these people in the room and have the open discussion about what you want to offer, and how this should be commercialized in a way that people see the value. They need to see the value, and they need to be able to quantify it.
Okay, that's very interesting. So you need to think about the commercialization phase even when you're in the innovation phase. And you mentioned that you need to basically surround yourself with a lot of smart people, a lot of people that are already thinking about commercialization and advisory board. So who should be the first key hire in the commercialization phase?
Yeah, advisory board is something, on a side. It's not, these are not the people that you are going to hire. But as soon as you think about commercialization, and you have funds to sort of invest in this particular unit of your business, in ideal world, it's good to have a mixture and really diversified group in your team. And it doesn't need to be a lot of people. But I assume that most of our founders, they will work in a really, high tech environment, AI, really latest technology. And then obviously you think about young people, who really understand it, who know how to maximize the value of this technology. And that's fantastic. Take some of these young people, make sure that they buy into the purpose of your business. be very transparent and make sure they are there not only for the career, not only for the money, not only for the learning opportunity, but also they share the purpose of your organization and your purpose. And also be transparent with them that it can be a bumpy ride. You know how it is when you scale up.
Yeah.
Sometimes the runways are limited. Sometimes not everything is happening at the sort of project timelines. I think the mixture of these things will help you to create people that will follow you. It doesn't matter. It's a bumpy ride or a time for celebration, but they will follow you, and they will follow you because they believe in what you are doing. And then let's say that's half of the team, and then great to have few, let's call them like old foxes in your team. And I speak about commerce now, right? So
Yep.
to mix your young talented individuals fluent in technology, AI, to mix them with the people that spend their life selling. Okay, people that know very well your customers, that people that can just take a phone and basically call somebody at the customer side and arrange a meeting for you. People that could coach your young, ambitious talents and help them to grow as a salespersons, and people that could also learn from these young people about technology, about some technical features of your product or potential product enhancements that you can do in the future. So I'm a big fan of diversified teams, and I'm a big fan of building teams where you know part of the team is benefiting from the other part. And then I did it, and it worked very well. It worked very well.
Hmm. Okay, that's very interesting because as you said, you have to have a diverse team with young prodigies, old foxes, as you said. Really like that analogy. But what we've noticed at Scale at Agro is that a lot of our cohort members, they really struggle with then leading a team. So they may be able to hire a really amazing team, but then you have to think about leading them and managing a team. So how do you go from being a great innovator to a great leader?
And that's a great question. And now we are moving into leadership, and leadership is something totally different than being an innovator or being a great salesperson. It's somebody said it very nicely that it's not about being the smartest person in a room, but it's about making the room smarter. And I really like this analogy. So when you are the leader and you move from this sort of phase where it was sort of a one-man show, where you had to raise money, you had to innovate, you had to make all the most important decisions. Now it's the time to surround yourself with the people that most likely know more than you, and they are better than you in their particular sort of areas of expertise. And your job is to make sure that they are reaching their maximum potential, that they are the best versions of themselves under your leadership. I think that in the current uncertain times, it's very important to create for people this sort of a safety space where they can feel free, they can really focus on their job. They will not be thinking about whether they can challenge you or not, whether you will be happy or not happy because they do not agree with you, whether we will have money in the next 3 months or not. You hire them for a reason. You hire them to sell, or you hire them to do marketing, or you hire them to do the product innovation or product development, and they should have a safety space, a freedom where they should focus on their objective, not to be distracted by the other things. And my three sort of pillars of leadership. Number one is trust. I think it's very difficult to build something when there is no trust. And
Mm.
trust, you can develop by doing various things, but it's one of these things that you sort of gain by doing, by showing who you are in a daily life. You can start it during hiring, not only focusing on, the precious things, but also being transparent that it can be a bumpy ride. And that's fine. And then you sort of build relationship with people. You try to support them, not to control them, but to support them. The feedback culture, in my opinion, is something that really helps to build trust, to build a healthy organization, to build healthy relationships, and give you access to the first-hand information, because people, they will not be afraid to tell you something that you don't want to hear. If there is
Mm-hmm.
a feedback culture, then that you promote and you're open to, they will tell you what they think, and then it gives you also the right to share with people what do you think about the business, about their actions, their performance. And I value it very much. And for me, feedback culture, it's my sort of second pillar of leadership. And number three is purpose. It's
Mm.
it's very important to work towards a common goal, towards a common purpose, to share the vision. I think it really helps, and it's extremely important when things get tough, and it's extremely important for the innovation, but not the innovation sort of only inside the product development team or people really focus on innovating, but then almost everyone in your company uh, is focusing on making life better, on making the business better, in every aspect that they do, because they all share the same purpose, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And even if you are, I don't know, at the production line, if you share the same purpose, you will make sure that everything what you do to make the ultimate goal achievable and better. So that's my philosophy that I can share in sort of 5 minutes, because we could discuss about this for much longer.
Yeah, that was a really good short leadership masterclass, so to say.
Yeah, yeah, and also just really last thing, it's also important to acknowledge how we evolved in the leadership in the past 20, let's say 20, 30 years. IQ is not the most important things anymore in the leadership. We start speaking about the MQ, which is like a moral quotient, or EQ, the emotional quotient, but also the HQ, that's the recent one. It's like a health quotient. What does it mean? That means that if you are not going to look after yourself, nobody else will. And make sure that the other people, they look at you, they follow you, they want to be like you. And you need to give them a good example. you know
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
cannot you cannot expect that everyone you hire will work in exactly the same way as you do, will sort of devote to the business 24 hours a day during the weekends. You cannot expect that. you know it's and you have to acknowledge that if you are a founder, if this business is everything for you, you will approach it differently. And it's fine that your team is going to approach it slightly differently. And that's absolutely fine, you know?
Yeah.
And
I
you need
think a
to
lot
be
of
okay with this.
yeah, I think a lot of founders find it really hard to accept that they can't expect their team to be working as the founder is himself. And I think that's a hard thing to accept, but you
I
have to.
Look, I will give you an example. I was recently called by one of my friends, and he was hired a few months ago, and he just said, "Look, I just learned that my CEO, he is almost not taking holiday. What should I do? Is it, you think that's the culture and this is what he expects from me? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
the sort of, these questions are coming, the uncertainty, and people start thinking, is this what is expected? Is the life in this business like that? Is this a place for me? You need to be aware that people are looking at you, and you, as a CEO, as a founder, you are creating the culture of this business. You know the very old saying, the fish spoils from the head, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't, you want to work 24 hours a day? Fine. You wanna take, I don't know, 5 days of holiday per year? Okay. But don't expect the others to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And make
That's
sure
very
they know
valid.
it. Make sure they know it.
That's very valid. You're right. I'm gonna ask a very, very difficult question, and another sometimes a truth that founders need to accept. Can you, as the founder, be the bottleneck for the business sometimes? Can you be the one stopping the business from scaling, from growing bigger? And the question that leads to that is it sometimes better to stay as the chief innovation officer or chief product officer and hire someone else, an external CEO, to grow the business, to commercialize, to scale up?
That's a very difficult question indeed. And I will start by saying what I learned from one of my professors at London Business School. She was always saying, what took you here won't take you there. Okay. And there is a whole book about that. So, all of these things, like your innovation skills, your fundraising skills, your other skills that were just very, very important at the certain stage of the business, will not take you to the top when the business is at the different level. You need to evolve. You need to adapt. You need to develop. You need to learn. And it's all in your hands. Can you do it? I think you can. But it will require a lot of hard work and a different set of skills, different approach to some things. And there is mentoring, there is coaching, there are some other, I don't know, courses and organizations like our organization, where you can learn new things, you can connect with peers that are at the different level, and maybe try to discuss with them some of the challenges that you are having. But it's an evolution, and some people, they will maybe prefer to stay at the level of innovator and creator. And again, I think that's fine. You know, that's fine. It's nothing wrong. You can hire an external CEO that will move the business that you set up, that you established, to a different level and make it a big success. And that's absolutely fine. If that's best for the business, why why not to do it?
Mm-hmm.
You can still be the one who is, innovating, who is bringing new products, who is bringing new ideas, who the one with the vision, but you can sort of cooperate closely with the new CEO and be okay that he's making the ultimate decisions, that not you anymore, because you are not the CEO. But quite often for the business, it may be better.
That's very true. That's very true. I wonder though, is there a risk attached to that as well? What if you hire the wrong profile, or what if the new CEO, she doesn't share the purpose as you talked about as one of your pillars in leadership? What's the risk attached with that, with stepping down?
Yeah, I mean, it's like with sort of every recruitment, and the risk gets higher when the responsibility gets higher, and it's a very serious process that you need to approach with sort of caution and the right mindset. I suggest using your board, using maybe network of senior people that you know, that they may help to recommend you someone. They have a different view, you know, they if they are at the board level or they know your company from sort of a different perspective, they have a different view, and they will for sure give you a good feedback. What type of personality, maybe even potential names they will give you, who would be good for your business to take it to the next level. But yeah, this is a thorough recruitment process that you have to make.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a risk? Yes, there is. But we sort of every day hundreds of CEOs are hired, and there are hundreds of them are successful.
Mm-hmm.
But I suggest seeking for advice, speaking with your board, speaking with senior, experienced people, like really senior. I mean, not only in terms of their position, but in terms of the age, in terms of really years in the business, and different situations that they are experienced in various companies, various industries. And they will help you. They will give you the feedback that you need, in my opinion.
Okay, understood. Piotr, I'm going to ask a very, very selfish question for our cohort,
Uh-huh.
because I know a lot of the members in our cohort, they struggle with this, and you have a lot of experience in this. So let's talk market. A lot of our cohorts, they've already expanded in Western Europe, but they're looking to expand into Eastern Europe, and you have a lot of experience with that. And I wonder how the market is fundamentally different between Western and Eastern. What are the differences? Are there differences? Are farmers looking to buy something different? What's different?
Look, I was asked this question a couple of times by different people, and it's very difficult to give a straightforward answer because it varies from one industry to the other industry, and it's difficult to get a really straightforward answer that yes, I don't know, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany, they are totally different than Poland and Norway. It depends. It depends. It depends on local regulations. It depends sometimes on even on the weather. It depends on political landscape. For example, if we are seeking for some local subsidies in some countries, it's relatively easy to get a governmental support for some new innovative projects. Like, for example, Poland. I'm Polish. Poland is very open and supportive for external innovation. And there are other markets where it's just more challenging. So my suggestion is look at every market from the perspective of the potential. Then make a list of the markets that have the highest potential. Go there, speak with people, get first-hand information, and you will know. Because sometimes there may be one regulation that is changing everything for you. It can derail your project, or it can just say, "Oh wow, it's really, it makes life much more easy than in the other market because of this certain regulation." For example, I don't know, sustainability. It's definitely perceived differently in East Europe than in West Europe. Still, it's perceived differently.
How so?
And sorry?
How so? How is it perceived differently?
Yes, so this is something that I was explored recently, and in sort of Eastern European countries, I think we are still a little bit behind West Europe, okay, in terms of how important is sustainability and how much we are willing to pay for it. We say it's important or it's very important and we want to be sustainable and we want to change, but when it's time to pay for it or to contribute, not everyone is ready.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the differences. For example, I recently spoke with one of my friends, and he's also in innovative business. And he said that one of the great opportunities for innovative companies specializing in water will be Ukraine. When the war is going to finish, the biggest problem that the country is going to have is water. a lot of water reservoirs, dams. The whole water system was very much damaged during the war. And this is something that the government is now working on sort of improving and securing, and they are very open for external innovation to help them to sort it out. And I even heard they have funds to invest.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Very interesting.
really it depends. When we spoke about crops and I don't know, fruits, vegetables, it depends on climate, it depends on soil, it depends on water. So I encourage people the same what I was saying at the very beginning about building the customer value and preparing for the commercialization. Just identify the countries with the biggest potential and go there. Go there. Speak with the key opinion leaders. Speak with your potential customers. We are living in a digital world. You can find somebody who will consult for you via LinkedIn. Somebody who knows the market very well. Maybe it's a retired industry veteran. He knows the people. He knows the market. Pay him for a few hours of sort of consulting and ask the relevant questions, and then you will know. You will know what exactly different country, different geography means for your particular business.
Piotr, thank you so much for that answer. We have a closing tradition on this podcast. So, what's one thing that we have missed in our conversation today that you think is supremely important for founders, in food tech, in ag tech, in sustainability to understand and to really think about?
Just stay focused and make sure everything you do is focused on delivering the customer value. That's it. That's it. And then you will be fine.
Piotr, thank you so much.
Thank
There
you.
was a very interesting conversation today, and your way of articulating yourself, your way of articulating the ideas, it's really, truly very inspiring. And I think our cohort members, the listeners of this podcast, they're going to get a lot of value from this. So thank you so much, Piotr.
Thank you for having me, and was a pleasure. Thank you, Akash.